Joining me tirelessly from South Korea is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Mr. Secretary, it has indeed been a whirlwind for you, the entire team, the president. The trade deals with Japan and Korea, highly significant, hundreds of billions of dollars. But it will not surprise you, sir, to hear that the globalists at The Economist say that China is winning the trade war. And today, the New York Times basically said the same, claiming that by withholding soybean purchases and rare earth exports, China extracted relief from U.S. tariffs, delayed export controls without conceding much in return. What is your response tonight?
Laura, good to be with you, and happy 8th anniversary on the Angle. And I've stayed behind in the Republic of Korea to represent the U.S. at the APEC conference. And I can tell you, this was one of President Trump's finest moments, and everything that he's been doing since he came back on January 20th, rolled into this moment. He's been doing peace deals, trade deals, tax deals, and in terms of trade deals, he came into China's backyard. He was in Malaysia at the ASEAN conference. We signed deals with Malaysia. He was credited with stopping the war between Thailand and Cambodia. We moved on to Japan, where he signed a historic trade deal with Japan. Takes tariffs on American products down to virtually zero. We get $550 billion from the Japanese in terms of public sector investment, the trillions of dollars of private sector investment. Then we came to Korea, and the historic meeting yesterday between President Trump and President Xi. And Laura, I can tell you, I've been privileged to be at 3 leaders' meetings with President Trump. Yesterday was the 4th, but there was G7 in Canada. There was the meeting at the UN where about 85% of the Muslim world was represented by their leaders. There was a meeting at ASEAN where all the Asian leaders wanted to speak to and be with President Trump. And then yesterday was a historic day. He sat down face-to-face with President Xi. We are the 2 largest economies in the world, and he negotiated a fantastic deal for the U.S. And anyone who says that it was anything different, has Trump derangement syndrome, because President Trump, the respect that President Xi had for President Trump was evident in the room. The 2 of them have a very solid relationship, and as President Trump said, it was a 12 out of 10. What we came away with, what were our gives? Our gives were we reduced from 57% to 47% the tariffs, based on their willingness to comply with stopping fentanyl precursors, which they ship into North America. And Laura, what's the price that you put on American lives? Hundreds of thousands of Americans dying every year, families ruined, and President Trump is focused on ending this great tragedy. There's going to be heavy compliance. We're going to set up a system of quantitative measurements to see if they are keeping up with those. And on October 8th, China unilaterally said that they were going to put a rare earth licensing regime on the entire world, and President Trump, as the leader of the free world, got this delayed by one year. So it wasn't just for the U.S., it was for the entire world.
Well, what happens a year from now?
Because our supply chains are so integrated.
Right. What happens a year from now, Mr. Secretary? A year from now,
we'll be at the table. My guess is a year from now we'll be back at the table, and we'll get another delay, another roll, because what everyone misses is the Chinese have rare earths, but we have President Trump's threat on tariffs. He gave the team maximum negotiating leverage when, within 24 hours of the Chinese announcing the potential export controls, he said, if this happens, I will raise the tariffs on China 100%, which is in essence, an embargo. And the U.S., we are the deficit country. China has to export to us. So the deficit country, always wins, the surplus country loses. So we have lots of we have lots of arrows in the quiver that we can use against them. But Laura, I think what's more interesting here is, maybe we can settle into a good place where the competition is more fair. We have substantial tariff income. As you said, we have a chance to start building out our own rare earth network. And Laura, it's not just rare earths. The previous administration was asleep at the wheel. It's rare earths, it's semiconductors, it's shipping, it's precursor pharmaceuticals and medicines. It's about 7 strategic industries that we have to become independent. We do not want to decouple from China. We need to de-risk. And with President Trump's historic leadership, we are going to de-risk, and it is an all-hands-on-deck effort across all the departments in this administration.
The question remains, I think, as time goes on, can we ever really guarantee our independence if we are reliant upon a communist regime for critical industries and critical materials, such as rare earths?
Laura, of course not. Of course not. And what we're going to do is we are establishing our domestic industry, and we are working with like-minded allies around the world to immunize ourselves from these problems. And we didn't get here overnight. This was a problem that occurred over 2-3 decades, but I think in 12, 24, 36 months, it's very achievable that we will be able to stand on our own.
Democrats, it wouldn't surprise you, are painting this as a win for the CCP. Watch.
It appears to most reasonable observers that Donald Trump was punked on the world stage by the Chinese Communist Party. The notion that Donald Trump has created all of this trouble for the American people, which he has. The Trump tariffs are raising costs on everyday Americans by thousands of dollars per year.
Mr. Secretary, punked. I thought that word went out like, 10 years ago, but there you have it. Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah, well, look, he's the leader of the Democratic talking points. He's shut down the government, which is an international embarrassment. And where were they? The Democrats, for the first 2 years, had the trifecta. They had the presidency, they had the House, they had the Senate, and what did they do? They did squat. They did squat. They wrote papers. They talked a lot. Nothing got done. And not only did we inherit a gigantic deficit, we inherited a deficit of action on all of these problems. And during COVID was the beta test for what happens. China proved itself to be an unreliable partner during COVID, and everyone should have taken that as all hands on deck. And instead, the Democrats were busy blowing out the spending, sending money for the transgender surgery in Central America and the gender studies in Myanmar. That was their idea. So for Representative Jeffries to even say anything is really disingenuous, and he knows better, but he can't say better. That's the problem with today's Democratic Party. They're a hive. They have one set of talking points. They can't move away from them. 3 brave Democratic senators have come across the aisle to reopen the government. I'm calling on 5 more to come across, reopen the government before Thanksgiving, because as we can see, Newark Airport, Reagan Airport, air traffic controllers are going out, and what if there's an accident? What if there's an accident due to the shutdown? It is going to lie with the Democratic senators. 52 Republican senators have voted to reopen the government. 3 Democratic senators have. 52-3, Laura.
Mr. Secretary, how long can this go on with this shutdown? I mean, people are really hurting. SNAP benefits, obviously, I believe tomorrow is, people are going to be out of luck, out of money. We have a concern about government workers. The list goes on and on. But are there any ways to find money to pay people who need to be paid, given the Democrats' intransigence?
Well, Laura, we were able to pay our brave men and women in the armed services. I believe that we will be able to pay them on November 1st. We're working hard to try to find a way to do it if this thing drags on to November 15th. But, Laura, you and I know the day after Thanksgiving is the busiest travel day in America. And if our airports are shut down, it'll mean that highways are more congested, and they'll be the Grinches who stole Thanksgiving. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I think that I keep calling them 5 senators come across the aisle. You will be heroes to the American people.
Mr. Secretary, Jerome Powell yesterday kind of threw some cold water, it seems. He came across to a lot of people, including yours truly, cold water on the Asian trip by saying basically that the rate cut in December wasn't a foregone conclusion. Your reaction to Powell's decision to give those remarks yesterday?
Look, I think it's endemic of a Fed that has been completely wrong, whether it's on tariffs or the economy. They started cutting rates. I think that we should be in a cycle here, and I'm not sure what the problem is with the voters. Last year they voted for the massive 50 basis point rate cut in September before the election in November, clearly very political. Then two rate cuts after that, and the labor market was in better shape then. The inflation levels were the same. So I'm afraid that the board may be playing politics here, and what's really discouraging is we were starting to see signs of a nascent recovery in the housing market. The housing market is obviously the most interest rate sensitive sector of the economy. Americans have been pushed out of affordability in the housing market, and this isn't helpful what the Fed's doing here. And when I look, rents are down, and that's one of the biggest components of inflation. So it's like they want to have a nation of renters and not owners.
Certainly looks like it. Anything you want to tell us finally, very importantly, about the birds behind you, because they seem to be quite exercised about the whole summit, the whole meeting. Well, have you done something to scare them, Mr. Secretary? I don't know what's going on there.
No, Laura. Once Air Force One left, the magnitude of the conference kind of lost a little altitude when President Trump left. So I'll be sitting in the seat for the U.S. delegation. No one does it like President Trump. He's clearly the leader of the world, and this is a historic time for him, for the world. And this is what American leadership looks like. He came he came to Asia and signed these trade deals, the peace deals, and led through strength. And it's America's back on the world stage, and President Trump's leading it.
And the birds are enjoying every minute of it, apparently. Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for spending so much time with us tonight. We will talk to you very soon. Congratulations on this week.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.